Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel for the first bit of my playthrough demo, probably more like a couple of turns demonstration of play of Duel of the Giants. Now I've decided, just for a bit of interest, to set up the winter scenario. So as I'd said in my previous video, it's all the same kinds of terrain except for the snowdrifts, and they all behave very slightly differently to how they do in summer. So what I'm really hoping to do with this video is to just give you a sense of the setup and the ebb and flow of play, and I'll explain how all the different systems work as we go through. So, as with Duel in the Dark, again, I will often refer to that game because there are so many similarities between that one and this. An awful lot, and a key to winning this game goes into the initial setup by both sides. So what you do in the beginning is you set up the terrain on the board, and that's these bits and pieces. There are 20 altogether. You mix them up in a bag or something, and the Soviet player first draws 10 of them. They can then decide whether they wish to use all 10, but whichever number they choose to use, they get to place their terrain first, then followed by the German player, who gets the same number of terrain tiles and the same decision to make. Now, there are pros and cons to both approaches. In some ways, the Soviet player wants a fairly clear map, because once his tanks have broken through the front line, they'll then have hopefully a nice easy run off the board, and that's the way they win their points. That's the way they accumulate a lot of points. Conversely, because the Germans have such considerable firepower, it is nice having some terrain that you can hide in, or perhaps, just dig yourself into if you need to make a fight of it. The Germans grapple with very much the same consideration. On the one hand, if you have a nice open battlefield, it's nice because your superior firepower can really be brought to bear against the Soviets. That said, you want some terrain to break up the speed of the Soviet advance and buy you time to really bring your weapons to bear and knock them out before they can dash off the board. So again, it's a bit of a balance there too. So the battle I've set up here has actually seen both sides use not that much terrain. They've decided they both want to chance it. Certainly on the German side of the board, where there isn't much at all. And on the Soviet side, there's a bit, but not a huge amount. We've got a bit of a scattering of some iced-in forests and some snowdrifts. There is some high ground as well, which the Germans aren't capitalizing on just yet, but the fact that it's there is useful to them. So once both sides have placed their terrain, the German player then sets out his frontline markers. They can set these up anywhere they like on their board, but they have to be 3 hexes away from the Soviet end of the board. That's just to ensure that the Soviets have some deployment options. Now, if they really wanted to, the Germans could set the front line further back, but that's a bit of a suicidal thing to do. You really want it as far east as you can get it. Once these barriers have been laid, it then goes back to the Soviet player, who lays these little stars down. Now, 8 of these are genuine tanks. The others are dummies. So the Soviet has a fair amount of leeway to decide, where he wants to try and make the German player think his attack is coming, or maybe he just decides to eschew subtlety and just go straight for it. The setup I've gone for here is I'll say a fairly conservative one, so roughly 2 ranks of what may or may not be tanks, with no very obvious emphasis on any part of the front line over the other, with perhaps as an exception the fact that they seem to have what's a bit of a weak left flank for the Soviets. Now, once the Soviets have placed their tank markers, It goes back to the German player to lay their defenses down. So their defenses, of course, consist of the anti-tank weapons, 3 of which are dummies, 8 minefield tokens, half of which again are dummies, the 2 Tiger tanks, and the airfield with the Stuka on it. Now, a word about this. This is actually for the multiplayer game. There's Orders of Suvorov or the German Panzer badges, and those are for recording victory points. The reason I've put that there is because when you have 2 identical control boards for your panzers, I find leaving the badge on one of them is a good way of not getting mixed up, which tank is which, basically. So there we go. So both sides are ready for play. And the first thing that happens in what's called the opening phase is the Soviets make the first move. So what they get to do is they can, if they wish, move up to 2 of their markers, i.e. these things, and then they can activate any number of tanks that they wish. They have to activate a minimum of 1, but they could activate all of them on turn 1 if they wanted to. I mean, that would give the game away a bit, but if you want to, you can. Now, as the Soviet player, temporarily as the Soviet player, it's a bit early in the day to make any huge changes to my starting disposition, so I'm going to opt not to move any of these. Now, you can move them a maximum of 2 spaces when they're concealing a tank or maybe not a tank. Once the tanks are revealed, they can move a lot faster than that. So, as I say, I'm not going to move any of these guys, but I am going to reveal these 2. So I'm going to open the ball up on the left flank. Now, when you place your tanks, you can place them in any direction, and you can even have their turrets facing a different way if you wish. But I am going to go straight for placing them there because that's right where I want them. And so the main body of the game is now ready to begin. The Soviets have shown their initial hand, as it were. So now things go to the Germans. Now, in the first phase of a game round, the Germans have to program their defenses, and that means doing something with the Tigers. So this early in the game, it's a little difficult to know what to do. Obviously, the German player is realizing he guessed a little bit wrong. He decided in his mind that the main weight of my offensive was going to be over there, hence the 2 Tigers being positioned over there, and a somewhat weaker defense here. Now, luckily for me, as the Soviet, and I did use a few random dice rolls to help with this setup, I've luckily placed some of my forces in a very weak part of the German line. There's only 1 anti-tank weapon there. And then it's really just passive defenses until you get the next one. But there's not much the Germans can do about that now. They've got to think about what to do with these tanks. They've also got to think about whether they rush both of them down here to respond to the threat, or whether they're a bit more measured and maybe send one of them and keep the other one up there to watch the rest of that mass of what may be Soviet armor. So that tank is going to hold its position. Now, if the Germans wanted to fool a live Soviet player, as I say, they could, for holding position, they could have the uppermost card be a stop card. And they could just choose any old cards to go underneath it to make it look to the Soviet like they've programmed in a full load of movement. Again, just as a reminder, the Germans have these little wooden pieces that track the damage state of their panzers, and at the moment both are on 5, so they're entitled to 5 of these cards. So that one's going to hold position, although the Soviets don't know that. This one is going to have to try and do something a little different. And he has been caught a little bit out of position, so they're going to have to think fast. So if I just riffle through the cards, it's where you have to concentrate a little bit. Bear with me. So the second German panzer has selected 5 action cards, and we will see what they are a bit later. So the Germans have programmed the defenses for their tanks. The other thing they can do is reorient one of their anti-tank guns. And I think it makes sense if the nearest one, bear in mind the Russians still don't know whether that's real or fake, that one's just going to rotate on its axis to cover this side. Now, in this game, there are lots of blind spots because you can only target something if it follows the line from where your gun is pointing. So hypothetically, if that were a tank with a movable turret, it could only fire that way or that way. Any target in this area is out of its firing arc, curiously enough. So, right, the Germans have made their move. Now it's up to the Soviets again. So, again, the first thing, and this is always the first thing the Soviet has the option of doing, they can move any of their markers, well, up to 2 of them, and they can move 2 spaces. Again, I am not going to move them because I'm quite happy with where they are. And I don't really know what orders the Germans have given their tanks. I just know that they've been given orders. So what I'm going to do, because I'm off to such an advantageous start here, I'm just going to give my men the order to go forward and exploit the lax German defenses. So in winter conditions, the Soviet T-34s have 4 movement points. It costs 1 movement point to enter a clear space, and it costs an additional 1 to bash one of these obstacles out the way. So this tank here is going to go 1, 2, crunch, it goes. 3, and then 4. And as he enters that last space, he is going to rotate his turret, which is a free action for T-34s, so that he can see that. And what it allows him to do, because it's 2 spaces away, is he can reconnoiter it. So he gets to see what it is. And it is a PAK-36. Right, okay. Now the question is, what do I do with my second tank? That thing is deadly at close range, so I don't want to let my tanks get too close to it. Although you could also say I'm the Soviet Union, I should just go for human waving it. Ooh, shall I or shan't I? No, I think I'll be a bit cautious with my tanks. So he's going to go 1, costs 1 to turn on the spot, 2, 3, and 4. So that's the movement of my revealed armor. And now for my final turn step before the violence and the shooting begins, I can reveal more tanks if I wish to. And I'll say that I certainly do wish to. So I'm going to reveal that one and that one. These are both tanks, just so you can see. And so I get to place 2 more tank models just to see if I can panic the German player any. So now that completes the Soviet side of the turn. The Germans get to reveal their order cards. I'll start with the Tiger with the badge. His very first order card is stop. So he's not doing anything. That basically is the end of his turn. What about this guy? He's going to do something slightly more involved. His first one is rotate 1 space right. So he turns. His second action, turn again. Third action, advance 1 space. No prizes for guessing what you're doing. And his fourth action, crunch forward again. Now, if you're wondering, and it's quite sensible to wonder, yes, German armor can enter their own minefields without any danger. They've clearly got the maps to the safe routes, one would hope. And his final order, his turret is to traverse to the, I'll call that the 10 o'clock position. So here's where it gets quite fun. Just rotate the turret round on that model, which means he is pointing. Unluckily for me, and well done the Germans, he has got a bead on my T-34, and my turret is still pointed forward. I would say bravo, but I'm not very happy about that. Probably not going to survive that one. So that is all the movement. Now we get to the violence. There is an order of priority. All combat is resolved between vehicles that are in a position to do this. And there is an order of priority. So priority goes to units that have guns bearing directly upon each other. So this is going to be considered simultaneous. So as a courtesy, I'll start with our enemies who are manning that Pack 36. So they have a basic firepower of 3, but it reduces for each hex beyond the original one, so it is 2 by the time it reaches that hex. What is my armor rating? Unfortunately, 2 is exactly what that scoundrel needs, so he blows my T-34 up. And just so you can see this, this is the victory point track. So the Germans get 2 victory points for knocking out my, let me just move this up a bit, for knocking out my T-34. However, I do shoot back before I die. The T-34 has a combat strength of 4, and the very badly protected Pack 36 only needs a hit in order to be demolished, so that thing is blown up. And I get back a victory point. Just to clarify, the way points are scored in this game, again, is very similar to how they are scored in Duel in the Dark. It's a sliding scale, so there's a lot of adding and subtracting, and that little marker will move up and down depending on who's in the ascendancy. So, so much for that. Now, because that tiger already has a bead on me, he gets to shoot first, and I can only return fire if I survive, and at much reduced combat capacity, because I would have to rotate my turret 1 in response, whereas his is already there. So my nasty, nasty tiger friend, who has a firepower of 4, so it's 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, luckily for me, at that distance, he doesn't penetrate my armor, but any hit causes damage. So he has damaged me, and he gets a victory point for that. Thankfully, much to the amazement of the crew, that T-34 is still breathing and is going to return fire at the tank. So 4, 3, 2, 1. Normally, that would be enough to damage the Tiger in return. However, the Soviets have a penalty when they have to turn their turrets in response. This is down to the historical reason that in a T-34, there wasn't as much, there was less crew flexibility, and your commander had turret duties as well. So there's a -1 imposed on his reaction shot, which means the value of his attack is 0 by the time it hits the German tank. And sadly for the Soviets, that means we do not hit him. Darn it. This tank doesn't have a bead on anything. That one could have potentially fired at that tank, but there's something in the way which is blocking its line of sight, and it's a bit too far away to have reconnoitered it. So in any case, even if the range had been favorable, 2-1, we would have done pretty much nothing to that German tank. So, uh, oh, actually, no, I lie. Apologies. Those don't block line of sight. So he is going to take his shot. So he's going to go 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, amazingly for me, that actually wins me a point because although it hits the tiger in its rear quarter, not enough to cause it serious damage, but even a weak hit causes some failure. So that tiger's rating goes down from 5 to 4, and the Soviets get a victory point, which is nice. So that resolves all the shooting for this turn. Now, at this point, and the Germans are going to do it, they have the option of launching their Stuka. The Stuka is a very, very useful asset. It can only take off once in the course of a scenario, and it can move 5 spaces for the next 4 turns. During that time, it can scout Soviet units, those that haven't been revealed, and it can also attack and destroy one Soviet tank. So it's quite handy, but you have to use it properly. So the Germans are going to send it up, got its nice little stand there. And because they are desperate to know what is going on in the northern sector, they are going to make it go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, straight towards the oncoming Soviet units because above all, they need information. They need to know what is there. So that is the end of the first turn. So I'll take away the wreck of my destroyed tank. 1 down, 7 to go. And we'll go straight back to the beginning with the Germans programming their defenses. That first tank is going to continue to hold its position, or is it? They have to be a bit careful about this because they still don't quite know what's over there. The other tank down here seems to be doing a good job of manfully holding this side, but it's going to come under a lot of pressure as I bring more tanks in. What the Germans might do with that tank up there is simply give it a traverse turret order, but otherwise hold its position. So I'll find the appropriate card for that. Now this one has some difficult choices to make because it's reduced to 4 cards now because of the damage it took last turn. And the question is, what's it going to do about that guy? So attempting to read my mind, it's going to go 3 spaces down, and then it's going to stop after that and hope that it's made the right decision, because its gun turret is already pointing in the right direction. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So the Germans have programmed their defenses. They are not going to alter the bearing of any of their anti-tank guns because, to be honest, if that guy turns, one of those two is going to get him anyway. So he might as well stay on that bearing and hope for the best because he has a definite target over there. If he chooses to reveal himself, he might be a dummy. So that's it for the Germans. They're going to sit tight on that for now. So as the Soviet again, am I going to move some of my hidden unit markers? Well, this time, yes, I am. In order to keep the Germans guessing, and because we have created a bit of room, I am going to shift those 2 markers down here just to see if I can make Manstein panic a little bit. Once I've done that, it moves to my revealed tanks. And do you know what? He is just going to go for it because... With the open step rule for T-34s, if they've got no obstacles in front of them, they can just floor the pedal and go for it with a movement rating of 5. So he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and charge off the board into the German rear. And that nets the Soviets a beautiful 5 points. Now, glancing enviously at him, these guys know they're in for a slightly stiffer fight. So they're going to go 1, 2, second movement point to get rid of that. Ooh, how are we going to play this? 3, as he enters that third hex, he's going to rotate his turret and reconnoiter this. And it is a dummy, right? We know we're in the clear. Ooh, that's nice. Actually, he's drawing a bead on that tiger over there. Moving forward one more might be suicidal, so I'm just going to keep him there for the moment. I might live to regret this or not, as the case may be, depending on what orders the Germans have given their tanks. But he can stay there for now. I like that. This one is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, basically crunching his way through that double layer of German defenses. And I'm going to leave him where he is because he's safely tucked behind that high ground. He's out of view of all those German defenses. And his gun is bearing beautifully on that tiger. That is exactly what we want. So lastly, am I going to reveal any more tanks? Yes, I am. Let's keep the Germans very confused and very worried. There's one more over here. And he's got a little mate with him. So one more over there. So now that they have done their bit, let's reveal what the German tanks are going to do. I'll start with him. He must have had a clairvoyant moment because his turret is rotating round to track that T-34 that's so rudely wandering into his line of sight. Ooh, that's a mighty big weapon you've got there. What about his next one? And that's it. He was only going to turn his turret casually in my direction. Darn. That might be goodbye T-34. We'll have to see. What about this fellow? First card. Ooh, he's going places. So he's escaped my little trap. His second one is the same thing. Ooh, where are you off to? I think he's running away. Third one, same thing. And his last one was a stop. So, okay, I see what he was doing, says Andrew, pretending he didn't slightly stage that. So essentially what the guy was thinking, because he was programming his orders where I still had a tank and possibly more tanks over there, he was going to bring himself round as a blocking force. Now, he is probably still in a good place to do a future intercept on those two. But unfortunately, he's turned his back on them. And because he'd already programmed his orders in, he could only sigh deeply when I revealed 2 more tanks over there. So that's a bit of a grim one for them. So he's doing nothing at the moment. His gun is pointing at nothing. However, we do have a clash between these 2 tanks here who are shooting each other. So the German has a strength 4, so 4, 3, 2, 1. Now, luckily for me, that doesn't penetrate my armor, so it just gives them a victory point. That said, 4, 3, 2, 1. I definitely do not penetrate his armor, but I do damage him, and I do get a victory point for that. So that's all the violence we have this turn. However, that Stuka up there is going to try and do something useful. So it's going to go 1, 2, and as a free action, it's going to reveal its own hex and all the surrounding hexes. So that is not a tank, not a tank, not a tank. Nope, no tanks there. And not a tank. So it's then going to turn 3, 4, 5. So in order to attack and destroy a Soviet tank, the Stuka has to come at them from behind. So what he's doing is he's setting himself up really nicely for a good attack run there. The Germans are a bit disappointed that they did not find any tanks over there. But then at the same time, it's also a bit of a relief because it means odds are good. I mean, I might have a couple more tanks round here, but at least they know I've got nothing further north than that. It does mean, however, that they guessed very badly wrong because pretty much all their anti-tank assets are over there and are going to have to be moved. So, yes, that's a rather difficult one for them. So, to the question of what they're going to do, I mean, at the moment, the Soviets are leading by 3 points, so the Germans want to stop the rot, really. Now, much to their horror, they realize they can't actually do anything to prevent those 2 tanks escaping. So that is rather bad news for them, actually. That's going to give the Soviets a 10-point lead. Now, for a moment there, I was hopeful that I could stop them. They actually no, they might be able to do something with their mines. Also, they can try and physically block us. It's not over yet. In fact, that might be what they will try doing. So let's start with our friend over here again. I'll just quickly set some cards for him. So Panzer 1 has his orders. He's down to 4 cards as well now, so it's going to get trickier and trickier as they lose more of their maneuverability. Sorry, bear with me while I find the correct cards. Okay, that's all programmed in. Right, Soviets, what are we going to do? I'm going to take a chance. Wait, no, let's stop. Let's do this in the right order. I'm going to carry on keeping the Germans guessing. Because again, you have to be 2 spaces away to reconnoiter these. So I am going to keep them guessing by shoving those 2 over there. And then I'm going to take a chance with these guys. I'm just going to run them forward and hope that there's nothing in my way but dummies. So 1, 2, it's a dummy. 3, 4, 5, another T-34 goes roaring off the board into the German rear. And I'm going to take the same chance with him. Go for it. The odds are not good, but just go for it. 1, 2. Ah, a mine. We've been halted in our tracks. The only thing I will do, though, as a gesture of defiance, is I will swing my turret round and train it on that panzer who's bearing his backside at me. What about over here? I think a straight advance is the way forward. So 1, 2, crunch. And then 3, 4 to get us up the hill. And over here, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 to enter the forest, as well as crunching my way through the defenses. And then 4 to advance beyond, because I'm feeling a bit good about this now. We're well ahead in points. And I think the harder I press, the more the Germans are likely to panic. And then lastly, just to be really rude, I am going to reveal my last 2 tanks, because I think the moment has come, and that Stuka's going to be on them soon anyway. So 1 tank there, 1 tank there. And actually, I can take the dummies away now, because all of my tanks have been committed. So the Germans now have the full picture. And it's not a very pretty one as far as they're concerned, I don't think. So, yes, let's see what the German tanks are doing. We'll start with our friend over there. First order. Just going to turn that away. Second order. He's going to advance. Third order. Turn that away. Ooh. And then last order, he's going to center his gun. No! So he's training that right in the face of my oncoming T-34. That's no good. What about this guy down here? Oh, he's going to reverse. Okay. Ah, I think I see what he's doing, and it might play into my hands. He's going to keep reversing. Oops. And then he's going to turn. Oh, all right. That's a slightly more sensible move. And then he's going to stop. Phew. Luckily for me, his gun is flapping in the wrong direction. So, now it's the violence. So we'll do them first, because they're pointing right at each other. Simultaneous fire. 4, 3. I'm afraid he blows me up, because there's no way I'm surviving that. 2 points for the Germans. My counter fire would have bounced off his front armor, so all it does is damage him. But I still get a point, and that Panzer is now down to 3 action cards. Over here, the Ruskies get to fire first, which they will definitely do. They penetrate the German tank's armor. Now, if you actually get a shot through, because the attack strength is 4 and the Germans' armor is only 2, it doesn't destroy the Tiger. Again, you can't destroy them outright, but it inflicts double damage, and I get a point. So that tank is now reduced to only 2 cards in future orders sessions. Unfortunately for me, because he survived, he's able to rotate his gun round and give me a faceful at point blank range, which destroys my T-34 as well. So ouch, that was painful. Meanwhile, the Stuka is going to go 1, 2, 3, attack and destroy another T-34, and then has to start returning to base for 5. So I have 3 wrecks to clear from the board now. Dear, that thinned my ranks out a little bit. But that said, I am still leading by 5 points as the Soviet player, and that's the 3rd turn into the game. So I think I'm going to call it there, because it's still an open possibility. The Germans could claw back a bit of a victory if they can, certainly if they can knock out my last 2 tanks. But actually, with me 5 points ahead, I think even if they do that, I will win by a whisker for having got 2 T-34s off the board. So I will leave it there, but I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope it's given you a good sense of how the game works. And I look forward to seeing you guys again when I cover this in the final thoughts video. As always, thank you so much for following this series and watching this video. It's always wonderful to see you guys. I've certainly had fun doing this, and I really hope you've had a good time watching it. So a very big hello to you all, and I look forward to seeing you guys very soon in the next one. Take care. Bye.